I like making things. I'm a guy who should have a project, whether it's a TV show, a story, a plate of food. I don't really even need to have it afterwards.
My previous experiences with two other networks are that television on the creative side was always do what worked last week, which is exactly the opposite of what interests me, which is to never repeat what I did last week, whether people liked it or not. How can we do something strange and wonderful that will confuse and terrify our network?
Anthony Bourdain's creativity was unmatched. From the frozen edge of Antarctica to the farthest reaches of Asia, no two journeys were ever the same. While many creators become consumed by audience expectations, critical reviews, or network demands, Bourdain refused to let any of them dictate his work.
I think it's also the good fortune to have sort of blundered into television as the one guy in the room who didn't give a shit. I realized very early on that this was a really powerful negotiating position to be in. So I never had to from the beginning, and I got used to that very quickly. And now I just won't have it any other way. It's not necessarily integrity, it's a quality of life issue. I don't want to wake up tomorrow and feel bad about what I did today. And I've been careful about, having had those mornings for much of my adult life, I've been careful about not finding myself in a position where I have to do something I feel bad about, or I compromise in such ways to feel bad. Again, it's not principle so much or integrity as it's a quality of life issue. I'd like to feel good tomorrow. I don't want to hate myself. I know what that's like, The ability to tell a story is creatively satisfying. To be able to focus exclusively on people and places that interest me. Most people in media, the boss tells them, you're doing a segment on, the rutabaga shaped like Nixon today, or, the heartwarming story of someone you don't care about at all. I don't live by those rules. I've been really fortunate to do what I want, and have, in an almost evangelical way, talk about people doing things I care about, like good guys. So that's a privilege. So I don't know about important. Ultimately, it's kind of a selfish act. It makes me feel good to do it, so I do it.
That's why you could feel the raw passion in every story he told. While many measure success by past achievements and look backward for reassurance, Bourdain was always drawn toward what lay ahead. He wasn't interested in repeating what had already worked. He was driven by the thrill of the unknown and the possibility of discovering something new.
Everyone on television who works in the television industry, by and large, lives in fear. And what they're afraid of is that someday they won't be on television. So they're not going to try anything new. They'll say they want something new, but what they really mean is the same thing that worked last year, because they don't want to be the guy who's stuck out there having proposed something that doesn't work. Everybody kind of adheres to do what worked last week, which is exactly the opposite of what interests me. But I'm kind of a freak in the business in that, A, I'm not interested in doing the same thing, even if it worked. And B, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to not be on television anymore. For me, television, the satisfaction of television is largely a technical one. It's about how can we do this show differently? How can we push ourselves creatively? Not just me, but my camera guys, the post-production, the sound mixers and sound designers, the editors. How can we do something different? How can we outdo ourselves? How can we do something strange and wonderful that will confuse and terrify our network?
Constantly pushing the boundaries in new directions, his passion for creativity extended far beyond television. It was the way he lived his life. Whether it was a plate of food, a line of writing, or an entire story unfolding on screen, Bourdain was a creator.
I like making things. I'm a guy who should have a project. When I was a chef, I was clearly somebody who liked multitasking. But I think I like making things, whether it's a TV show, a story, a plate of food. I don't really even need to have it afterwards. The process. I think being a chef, cooking, conditions you to the tiny technical satisfactions of properly executing a single plate, having a kind of a private moment when that plate sits there momentarily in the window before it goes out into the dining room to be ruined, where you look at it and you know you did this particular thing well. It's a very private moment. I think that's been useful in learning to like something so temporary, so fleeting. I think that's been useful in being happy in television and writing. I like the process of the editing process, the pre-production process, the nuts and bolts, the technical satisfaction of putting these pieces and elements together in conjunction with other people, having one tiny golden moment where you say, hey, that's pretty good.
As he traveled the world, putting together his shows, politics were impossible to avoid, especially when food was at the center of every story. What people eat,
Liver sandwich,
how they eat it, and who gets to eat it are all shaped by larger systems.
Well, there's nothing more political, there's nothing more revealing of the real situation on the ground, whether a system works or not. I mean, whatever your philosophical, the foundation of your personal belief system, it's difficult to spend time in Cuba, particularly like 10 years ago, eat with ordinary people and come out of it thinking, wow, this system's really working out for everybody. Who gets to eat, who doesn't get to eat, what they're eating. I mean, the food itself on the plate is usually the end result of a very long and often very painful story. I mean, is there a lot of food preservation? Is there a lot of pickling? Certain countries, their cuisine very much reflects either a siege mentality or abundance or intermittent periods of difficulty. Also, people just, if you go in not as a journalist, but just as somebody who's asking simple questions like, what do you like to eat? What makes you happy? People tend to drop their defenses and tell you extraordinary things that are very revealing. That on my show, I get the comment all the time, just stick with food, man. We don't want to hear politics from you. You're a chef, shut up. We don't want your political opinion. Okay, fair enough, but it's difficult to not notice the elephant in the room when, how come you only have these fish? Well, we can't go any further out to sea. How come you're missing 2 of your limbs, in Laos? When I was a little boy, I was walking around in the field and, stepped on one of the 8 million tons of ordnance you guys left in my country. Those are inescapable facts. How you choose to feel about them or interpret them, up to you.
Those journeys taught him something else as well. After spending years sharing meals with strangers across the globe, he found that behind the politics, the borders, and narratives that divide us, people are far more alike than they are different.
Look, I think if you travel as long as I have and as much as I have, and you meet as many people and spend time with them in countries that we're supposed to hate and who are supposed to hate us, when you see how similar and different, but mostly similar people are, particularly when sitting around the table, it makes it very, very hard to come back. When you see how the economies of the world are completely interdependent and interlocked, right, and the flow of money back and forth, it's hard to come back and not be horrified and dismayed by the willful ignorance of the kind of conversation we're having now, often by people who know better.
Yet the curiosity that drove Bourdain across the globe wasn't limited to the world around him. It extended inward as well. While most people grow more comfortable with age, Bourdain remained drawn to the unfamiliar. He was still searching for new ways to challenge himself, still willing to be the least experienced person in the room.
I'm coming right from jiu-jitsu, actually, and it's a humbling experience getting just squashed by younger, more fit, more experienced people. I started at 58. It's the last thing in the world I could have ever imagined wanting to do or enjoying. I've never been hung out in a gym. I've never really cared about those things. I think it can best be explained by, at my age, to learn an entirely new skill is deeply satisfying. To recreate that feeling of being the lowest person on the totem pole in a kitchen back when I was 17, knowing nothing in a very hard world, the incremental, tiny satisfactions of being a little less awful at something every day, or looking forward to the day where you might possibly be a little bit better. I mean, it's a never-ending journey, and it appeals to some part of my brain that I haven't visited before.